What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Devote 101. I am Nathaniel Donaldson, and as you can tell, we're in quarantine mode. Having to do this a little bit differently. I'm a little weirded out by doing this way, so I'm having to do this through Zoom or whatever. But who I have with me today, like I said, this is weird, so we have to deal with this lag here. But I have Miss Brenna Robinson with me. Brenna, how you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm just making sure you're still connected because this internet thing I don't trust sometimes. How you been through this whole quarantine thing?
It's been crazy. Like, just boring having to stay at home. Like, I'm ready to get back in the public and see people.
Yeah, I feel that, but I'm fortunate enough that my job's still going. I guess you could say it's essential, which is kind of offensive to people that their other businesses is like, so mine's not essential enough, you know, but in reality it's probably not. You know, I'm still fortunate enough to be able to work, but the problem is I got to go out there and potentially have to worry about all this other, you know, I'm trying not to catch it because I don't want to be quarantined. I don't want to have to stay here with no choice, you know. So that's the current deal right now. So, Brenna, if you would like to, before we actually get started, if you could tell the people a little bit about yourself.
Okay. I'm 18. I've been a member of Hodge United Pentecostal Church since I was young, or since I was born, pretty much. I enjoy various hobbies: reading, singing, drawing, the generic stuff. That's me.
And as you can't tell, she's got what is that above your head exactly? I don't want to embarrass myself.
It is a John Wayne replica rifle that my dad has up here in his shop. It's the quietest room in the house, so that's what I meant.
It's the quietest room, and there's a gun. Well, yeah. Brenna does a lot of competitive, I guess, is it called competitive shooting?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
It's just a 3-gun competitive shooting stuff, so.
Okay. Anyway, so just wanted to give you a little bit of idea of who Brenna is. We always have a joke that she's a undercover assassin, because sometimes she disappears and she goes to different states, but she's not doing that now, so.
Right, have to stay at home.
Yeah, it's crazy. So what we're going to talk about today is half-heartedness, and I'm going to have to transition into this, but when you think about half-heartedness, it's pretty obvious to think that you're not fully committed to something. Not even spiritual. Like, if you're half-hearted in whatever, like for instance, if you're half-hearted in your competitive shooting sports, you're not going to bring your A game. You're probably not going to go to state. Probably going to come nowhere close to it. You know, you got to be all in on it if you want to get it. But when you think about that spiritually, why do people fall to half-heartedness?
I think it comes down to not necessarily a lack of devotion, but just a prioritizing other things before church, getting distracted by whether sports or school things, you know, missing services, just kind of a lack of effort in their part.
See, I had wrote down primarily the other way you could call this, like another word for half-heartedness is lukewarm.
Yeah.
And, you know, that primarily means, you know, if you are lukewarm in the church, living for God, you can catch yourself just going through the motions. And, you know, I found this on a website. I never could find the website, but I wrote down the quote from it. Are you going through the motions? You know, if we are not careful, our relationship with God can become a predictable routine. And that's how you can be lukewarm. You just don't realize it, that you're just being repetitive in everything.
No, I mean, we hear it all the time, you know, the verse is about being lukewarm, you know, he'll spew you out of his mouth. I mean, so it's definitely a warning to try to not be lukewarm, you know.
I had written down, I think I tried to write down the bad effects, but I just made it singular instead of plural. The bad effect of half-heartedness, you strengthen the temptations against yourself. If you're feeding both the flesh and the spirit, the flesh is going to give in because the flesh is weak. You can't feed both. I know a lot of people, well, not people, we can just say when I say the church, I don't mean our church. It can be like the church in general, or we can just say mainstream Christians. Basically, what I'm
Right.
trying to say here. Uh, the mainstream Christians I've noticed nowadays are trying to do everything they can to what's the word? Uh, get as much into the world as they can without it
Mhm.
being sin.
Yeah.
When in
Yeah.
reality they don't realize it, but they're slowly slipping into the
Right.
world.
Just letting down boundaries and like slacking off on their morals to try to like fit in.
Yeah, but I have Luke 16:13. No servant can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. Like I was just saying earlier,
Yeah.
you can't serve two things. Um, God wants you either all in or all out. And we've already said He's going to spew you out of your mouth if you're lukewarm. You can't juggle both.
Right. Yeah, because God's not going to make you do anything. He wants to see who's willing to strive and really work for a relationship with Him.
Yes,
So,
you're doing yourself no good riding the fence. I think I heard that on a
yeah.
facing the Giants. I think that's where I heard that. You're doing yourself no good staying on the fence. You need to determine what
Right.
side you're going to be on and stay on it.
Yeah.
And that can be tough because, like I said, a lot of mainstream Christians are trying to not really just hop the fence, but they're trying to make like a little gate in that fence to where they can just sometimes open it up just a little bit and let a little bit of the world in.
Yeah.
Just here and there, just letting it flow.
Even the same thing can happen with church. Like, oh, I'm going to miss this one service for like a sport event, but I'm at all the other services, so it's okay. But that can become a habit to where you're missing more services than you're actually going to, and that can, cause problems
Yeah.
in the future.
That's the thing about sports, I do think they're great,
Yeah.
for they're not just keeping yourself active, it's great for bonding, with friendships and other people. I have met a lot of people through sports, and I would not have met them unless I
Yeah.
have been playing that said sport. And it can bring people together. But the thing about it
Right.
is,
Yeah.
if you make that I think like you said earlier, a priority,
Hmm.
and you make it way more important than what is actually important, that can be an issue
Right.
as far as what you're putting first. What are you putting in front of
Yeah.
God?
And it's not even necessarily just sporting events. I mean, school events, there's tons of things that can cause a distraction from church. So I know sports get a bad rap all the time, but it can be
Yeah.
anything really that takes you away from church.
Yeah, that's one thing. See, I can only relate to the sports sense because that's all I ever did in high school. I didn't do any extracurricular
Yeah.
activities. I didn't really hang out with a lot of people in high school, which I wish I could have changed that. I mean, I wish I could have just flipped that around and make it, you know, better for me and all that and all that stuff. But um, why is it just so easy to just make that first?
Right. I don't see I've never been a big sports person, so I'd never have gotten into that. But I think it's a big sense of acceptance, and that's if that's where you're having your fun and that's where you're being accepted, that's where you're going to want to spend your time at. And church is a little bit more effort. You have to put forth effort to coming to services and being a part of something. And I think it's just sometimes that it's such a worldly hold in that it's so easy just to distract you from church and what's really important.
You basically said you got to put more effort in, you know, whereas I'm relating it to sports, but you can relate it to something else. But like, when I relate it to sports, all you have to do is just be great athletically. That's all you got to bring to the table. You don't have to bring anything
Right.
else. I mean, you can bring a little bit of brains to it, yes, but the average person, it's not. It's just something to do that's just physical, or
Mhm.
you know. Whereas in church, you have to be very, you know, thoughtful. You have to be structural.
Yeah.
You have to be I guess, very organized with things.
Mhm.
Social. That's one thing in sports. You don't have to socialize all the
Right.
time. I mean, yeah, sometimes you can talk to your teammates, but like I said, it's just. I think the number one thing is being social. That's what makes people so reluctant to want to be a part in the church.
Yeah.
So, like we've already mentioned, and I know everyone already knows this, that we are quarantined. We're not allowed to go anywhere. Uh, we're not allowed to go to a lot of places. We still are allowed to go do things here and there, but not to. You're supposed to social distance and not be around a lot of people. And
Right.
now, being me an introvert, I'm totally fine with that. like I'm
Yeah, me
like
too.
like no problem with me. Like no problem whatsoever. But I have seen a lot of people post on social media. A lot of people have been getting very frustrated, because
Yeah.
it's understandable. It's like our lives are just being sapped away from us, and we can't
Yeah.
continue our goals in life, what we were trying to do in life. I've just seen a lot of people be like, I am just so bored right now. I'm so bored. I got nothing to do. And I'm like, well,
Right.
when you stop and think about it, what is what is it that you can do? This is what I stopped and thought about while I'm stuck at home when I'm not working. What can I do for myself right now besides, doing a little stuff here and there? Um,
Mhm.
I know a few people that have taken the time. It's like, well, I literally can't do anything else. I've got no excuse this time. A lot of people usually have excuses at this point when they're trying to, I'm going to apply this spiritually now, live for God
Yeah.
and do stuff for God. And so now, yeah, you can't go to the church, but you now have time to work on yourself.
Right.
You now have time to self-reflect, look at yourself, uh, pray more. This is the number one thing that we all have enough time to do now, more than ever. We literally no nothing is available for us to go do besides like go grocery shopping, and people that are still working. That's really it. And so now, what I'm trying to say is now is the time for us to work on just anything. Uh, Maybe to realize that you are half-hearted. If you are half-hearted,
Right.
and you just got to be able to self-reflect on yourself. I had written this down. You've already actually said this. I had a point to how to recognize when you're half-hearted
Mhm.
and what to do about it. So you've already kind of mentioned this. When you self-reflect and look at what are you allowing in, uh, what are you allowing to just come in your life, whether it be conversations, the way you talk to certain people, your
Yeah.
relationships, whether it be just friendships or legit relationships. What are you letting in those uh, friendships and
Right.
relationships? What are you pumping into your brain right now, especially specifically? Because I know I had this thing where I said, right now you okay. I'm about to get in like a little bit of a rabbit hole, but I'm going to explain this. Um, the point I'm going to make right now, YouTubers that make money, now is their time to just pump stuff out there because they make money off
Yeah.
of views and all that kind of stuff, and no one can do
Right.
anything. Like the whole nation can't do anything, and so now it's the time to be posting some stuff. But we have to be careful as Christians of what we're pumping into our brain right now. We got plenty
Very
of
true.
we have plenty of time to binge watch a bunch of stuff, a lot of Netflix, Disney Plus, whatever. But we have to
Yeah.
be careful on what we're pumping into our brain when, in reality, uh, I wanna. I think I told you about this before, actually, Brenna. Before any of this coronavirus was even an issue, whenever we were just doing normal things back in life, those were the
Mhm.
good days. Um,
Right.
I had made a deal with myself, and I'm not saying you're gonna go to hell or you're a sinner if you don't do what I do. I did this for myself. I stopped going to movie theaters because it was affecting me, and like personally, because a lot of movies
Mhm.
that there were some movies I'd go watch because I actually am wanting to keep up with,
Right.
and it was here and there. But then there was just some movies that was like, oh, it's out, let's just go watch it. And there's a couple movies that I watched and I regretted watching. I should have walked
Right.
out, on some of those because some of them were just either very inappropriate or very just like dirty,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the way people talked in it. It was just so inappropriate, and
Yeah.
it kind of hit me one day. I don't even know if I even heard a message. It just hit me one day, and I'm just like, what am I doing, pumping this into my brain, thinking that it's not actually affecting me,
Mhm.
when in reality it really is. So I think that was something that was causing me to be half-hearted uh, in my walk with God because I was pumping that in my brain, thinking that stuff's okay, when I know God is not okay with me, for one, watching that kind of stuff or, pumping that in my brain because eventually I'm going to start talking like that. I'm going to start thinking like that or thinking
Yeah.
about that particular thing, you know, and that
Right.
that was a good thing for me to realize before this, but now when everything's kind of slowed down now, it was great for me to slow down and actually think, okay, what's something I need to work on in my walk with God? You know, it,
Yeah.
it comes down to the main three things that we always talk about, and it's like, all right, what does it take to live for God? All right, pray, read your Bible, and fast. Those are three things that everyone always
Yeah.
lists, and it's like this.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, if you stop and think, okay, what if we had to ask that question again? What does it take to live for God? But don't say fast, prayer, and read your Bible. You know,
Yeah.
um, see, nobody knows what to say. I've been in plenty of like little meetings where it's like, so what does it take to live for God? And we're like, prayer, fast, read the Bible. And there's like, okay, what else? And everybody's like, oh no, we're not
Yeah.
we're not thinking, we're not reflecting on ourselves because that's the best way. We try to think about what would the average person do. When I think right now is the best time to think about what do I need to do myself. It doesn't matter what everyone else is doing, you know.
Right.
Um, so my thing was self reflecting on what do I need to get better at, and sometimes I am half hearted, and I'm not saying uh, no one struggles with this. I think almost every Christian will struggle with being half hearted
Yeah.
because we have our own things we do in life. We have hobbies. We have things that we have to do, and we obviously we can make our hobbies more important than what's really important, but we can
Right.
also make our duties and our what's the other word, priorities. we
Mhm.
can we can make those more important than God if we're not careful.
Yeah.
You can make your
Right.
job more important. You can make, you know whatever you call it, your errands, all the stuff that you do, on an everyday basis, more important than just having a relationship with God.
Yeah.
And it is uh, difficult to just stop and realize that. And that's why I was saying
Right.
now is the time to stop and reflect because it's not like we have anything else to do.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But I think this time that we're in right now, being quarantined and stuff, is also going to test a lot of dedication of people because we can't go to church. So you're not going to have that pull to go to an actual building where you can socialize. They've moved it online, which I'm extremely grateful for. It's better, than having nothing at all. But it's going to come to a point of nobody's around you, and it's going to be a point of, are you watching those services that are available online? Because with nobody around you to keep you like in check, it's
Hmm.
solely on you and it's solely on your own dedication. So it's going to be are you taking that time Sundays and Wednesdays when the services go online to really dedicate yourself to God and watch the services, still keeping time for prayer and Bible reading? Or are you going to slack off since you're not around anyone else and really let your walk with God suffer during this however long that we're in quarantine? And I think that's really going to be a big issue between, the people in the church, maybe not necessarily our church, but, just within the community and stuff.
That's crazy. Yeah, I like the point that you brought up. Is are we still going to be? I mean, we have no one to put us in check,
Right.
and I have seen quite a few things on Facebook, which I'm very thankful. People, members of our church, they're treating times that we would actually be going to church, like actual church time.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I've seen some families who are like, okay, it's 7 o'clock. We're going to all sit down in the living room and watch Brother Stroud's message. And so other people, they stop and listen to live streams, or whether it is a live stream or whether it's just a post, a video. And
right.
It's great. It's awesome to see that, because you really don't know what people do or how people would react if something like this was to happen. Like, how committed would you actually stay?
Yeah.
And like when I said earlier how we got to check ourselves and self-reflect, we also have to be careful as to right now we can, if we're not half-hearted before, we can fall into half-heartedness now because of what you just said. We're not going to church every time. We're not actually going to the actual building. We can fall into half-heartedness in this time because our regular routines have been messed up. I know a lot of people, some people would have routines before they wake up, before they go to work, pray, fast, read the Bible, whatever, and then go to work and do their everyday things. But now that they don't have a job, that can mess it up and get it all weird. And, if we're not careful, we can fall into it now instead of working out of it.
I found this really cool verse while I was kind of looking into half-heartedness, and it was Proverbs 1:32, and it says, KJV, for the turning away of the simple shall slay them, and the prosperity of fools shall destroy them. But another translation gave, for the waywardness of the naive will kill them, and the complacency of fools will destroy them. And I kind of thought complacency is another word for half-heartedness. We just get set in our ways. But what was interesting to me in this verse is that it said, the turning away will kill them, but their complacency will destroy them. And I was like, why use two separate words? Kill and destroy both mean, death, but what's the difference? So I use the Blue Letter Bible, and it gives like the really cool like definitions of the word, the Hebrew and everything. And the kill was just a physical death. But when the complacency destroyed, their destroy means to vanish, go away. It's a spiritual death.
Yeah.
And I was like, that is a good verse right there, because it's basically telling you, look, your half-heartedness will lead to spiritual death. That's something that you need to work on and fix.
Yeah.
So.
And it's funny. I'm thinking of Casting Crowns now, but it's a slow fade. It really is. When I said that, I thought about the song. But that's a pretty deep song though. That's kind of depressing if you actually listen to it. But it really is a slow fade if you get into half-heartedness, because you're just slowly giving yourself away to the world. And I've seen way too many people, and I got to think about this the other day, and it's so heartbreaking to think about, people that have been in the church that just slowly fall away to the world. And the world, it's so tempting. Don't get me wrong, all that stuff that the world offers, it looks fun. Some of it may not even be for a bad intent. But if you start inviting that stuff in, and that's all you're inviting in, it's going to slowly eat away at you. Slowly. And you don't even realize it. You don't even know.
Yeah.
That's the scary thing about being half-hearted. You become calloused to the Spirit whenever you start letting all that stuff in, and you don't even realize it anymore. You start becoming very critical of the church. I've caught myself being like that. I've let jealousy get in the way. I have let anger. I have let confusion get in the way when I wasn't fully sold out to God. And if you start letting the world in like that, that stuff starts coming in. You start judging the way things are ran in the church, the way things are being done, and you don't even realize you're letting your flesh overtake you.
I actually did have one more verse that I found and I thought was cool.
Okay.
It's 2 Chronicles 25:2, and it says, he did which was right in the sight of the Lord, but not with a perfect heart. And I thought, how true is that I think, like you mentioned earlier, we can still do what's right. We can speak a certain way, dress a certain way, still living for God. But if it's not with our full heart, that's where the problem is.
Yeah.
And, I got to thinking, if we don't do things with our whole heart, can we expect the whole blessings of God?
No.
Can we really, if we're not doing it with the right heart, then, it's not going to come to fruition,
Yeah. And it can, like I said, I keep repeating myself, but it can sneak in and you don't even know it,
Yeah.
So the main question that I can just throw out there, this isn't, you don't have to answer this, but just the main question that I can throw out there is, what are you putting first, or what are you putting in front of God? That,
right.
Like, what's more important to you? That's the main thing that you need to reflect on. Is like I said, how do you know if you're being half-hearted? You need to self-reflect. What are you putting more importantly? How much time are you spending watching a Netflix show compared to your Bible reading? How many how many YouTube watch hours have you had compared to your Bible reading minutes?
Right. Or even prayer time.
Yeah. Yeah, prayer time as well. How much time are you actually spending? But you don't need to fall into the thing of setting a 2-hour timer, because that's difficult. Because then you start just sitting there. It's like, okay, is the time almost up? Almost up? Don't set difficult goals on that kind of stuff. But
right, yeah.
Like I said, you're either all in or all out completely. God, He desires commitment, and we've got to want more. We've got to keep wanting more. Keep wanting more. And that's the crazy thing. There's no limit in your walk with God, because if that's what you're desiring, that can make you fall to half-heartedness, because you're like, well, I still haven't hit this goal yet because this, and this, and when it's not even that reason, and then you start just slowly falling off. And that's the main thing, is to know that there's no limits with God. There is no end with God, and it's you get to consistently and constantly grow in Him, and it's so amazing. And sometimes it takes a little knock on my head for me to realize that there's still a work that I can do through God.
Always, yeah.
If let's just say you do realize that you're being half-hearted, what would you do about it?
So if I noticed I was going through a half-hearted phase, I would try to figure out what the distraction was from church and from my walk with God. And I would try to, either put less time in that and more time in church, really get into my Bible, research, how to grow my walk with God, things that may be issues in my life, how to fix them. And if it was like a serious issue, go to someone like a pastor, a youth pastor, to really get, like, what can I do to fix this problem? How can I develop a better walk with God, a deeper walk with God, and go from there.
Okay. Awesome. Well, Brenna, I believe that's all we got for today.
Alrighty.
Now, I can't take a picture of you because anytime I snap a picture of a screen, it doesn't work great with a Polaroid, but...
right.
So anyway, guys that's watching the video, this is the board of people who all have been on the podcast so far. This thing needs to fill up some more. I need to fill this up. But, again, thank you, Brenna, for... taking the time, but
yes, thanks for having me.
It's not like we got much things to do anyway, so
right.
But dude, seriously, dude, thank you for sacrificing a little bit of your spare time to do whatever. So I guess we can fake the click whatever. All right, well, again, I can't thank you enough, Brenna.
Thanks for having me.
We've been meaning to do this for a long while, and I guess a worldwide outbreak of a virus was the only way to get us to do this. So.
Yep, good time to do it.
But anyway, thank you, Brenna.
Okay.
And thank you all for listening. I'm gonna do my best to get more episodes out. I have plenty of time now, that's for sure, and all that sort of thing. But thank you all for watching, and as always, be ready.